to do. If I was looking at my to-dos. Yeah, I want to show page for our thing. So I want like a specific page for just one thing. So kind of wanted to show you how to do that. It's not going to be anything fancy, but let's take a look at it. Okay. So I'm going to make this as its own component. I'm going to call this show. Let's call this thing show.js. So it's different than our thing component we're using to be just rendered on our things. This one's going to be its own specific page. Import the const show. For default thing show. So some things like a list of orders to do, like with this steps, like I'm just going to do this as like to-dos. I think the first thing to do with this is going to just be like, just set up this page, get it rendering, you know, set up page, and then the router part, and get it rendering. Then there's going to be another step of like getting data or getting thing. We'll do this with an Axios call on mount. Then there's going to be like the render thing. You gotta, those are kind of like the three, like when I start doing this, these are kind of like the three things I'm kind of thinking about. Let's just kind of first try getting this page set up so I can actually see it. So, and maybe let's do one more thing as well. I'm going to do this as its own separate step because we're going to need it for this. Let's grab the ID of the thing. We're going to need to do that with React Router. That might be, we've seen this before, but that maybe might be a little roadblock. So let's look at this. So there's one more thing. Sorry, add link to, this is part of this one. It's going to be add a link to thing to get here. Okay, so let's set up this page. Let's just get it working. So I'm going to go to my app.js. This is going to live in this route section because it's kind of this nested route. So this is going to be the path equals. I'm just going to copy this one. So I need to append this with, and I'm going to need to do backticks. So it's going to be things demo one. And then for this, since this is a show, I'm going to do an ID. Actually, I don't need the backticks. I don't know what I'm thinking. This is just a string. Okay, and then this element's going to be the thing component. So I could just test this out right now by going to things demo one, and then I don't really need a legit ID. I could just throw in something there. Oh, wait, that's the wrong component. This needs to be the thing. Oh, sorry. And there we go. So if I go to like things demo one and then throw it some random thing after that, it like knows where it takes me to the thing show. Now, actually, this used to be a bug in React Router 5 because can anyone see like what's kind of look at these two paths? What is this ID could be anything, right? It used to be the case with React Router 5, I had to define this thing below this more specific one, right? Because these are like kind of the same path. This one needs to be exactly things demo slash new. This needs to be things demo slash anything other than new. So if I go to things demo one, type in new, that takes me to my new thing. But if it's anything else, that takes me to my thing show. I mean, I am going to want an actual ID of the thing to show. Cool. So I have that route set up. Now I want to go, I don't want to have to manually do that. I want to go in and actually in my things, or sorry, it's going to be my thing. I want to create a link to this. So I'm just going to copy one of these links. I'm going to say show. And that's going to take me to my things demo one, and then I pass it the ID. That's why I put this edit right here. So it could distinguish between this is going to be the edit, this is going to be the show. Cool. And then we also have the new. So we have these three kind of paths. We have this will take us to the new form. This takes us to the show thing form, or just the show thing component. And this also edit ID. This will also take us to the thing form, but we get the ID. But now if I go back to my thing, since I added that link, that show link, I click there, that's my thing show, but then in my URL, I have the correct ID. So then I can grab that with my use params hook from React Router. So it's a const params equal use params. And really, I mean, I could call this, the use params is going to return an object that I can just destructure that ID off of. So I don't have to say params ID, I can just say ID. So this use params, this is how I get the ID from the URL. Well, technically, it's how I get that. Okay. And there we go, ID 65. Cool. So now I have this set up. So when I go to my show page, I have this component and then I have the ID. So I'm just kind of going step by step. So now I can get the thing on my mount, do a use effect. right? And then I could do like a get thing method. It's kind of just that my standard load data on mount call. It's going to be async. Good I don't have to do this in a try catch. It's good practice. So, but just to kind of show you, you can just skip that. I'm in a hurry. I want to give. So this is going to be a get request to API things. And the ID of the thing. Just make sure that's working. Console.log response. I should call this get thing. So it matches that. Okay, I'm going to inspect console. Let's refresh. There's my data. And there's my thing. Cool. So now I need to render the thing. So this is going to really be like, I need state. Just could do like a const thing, set thing. Okay, let's say I do something like this. Is that going to be okay? Is that correct? If I set that initially to an empty array?
Yes and no, I guess.
Why yes, why no? It's kind of
Because it's going to return an empty array, isn't it?
well, my thing state by default is going to be an empty array. So it says by default, when this page loads, to have thing be an array.
Yeah.
We've done this before, right? What's a little different about this API call though? It doesn't return in an array of things. It returns one thing. So if I wanted to default it to something other than null, I would default it as like an object, because that's kind of what I'm expecting it to be. Or I could have it be null. But an array would make an array in this case does not make any sense, because this is, I'm never expecting this to be in an array. So just go ahead and do null, do loading. Set loading. And then I could do like a render thing. I'm going to do a thing.map. No, because map I can only call on arrays. Probably I don't really even need to do the render thing. I could do something like this. I could do like if loading. So I don't even really need this in a function. This is kind of let's do this in a word. Okay, so I'm going to do. Actually, yeah, let's do this in the function just so it's maybe a little cleaner. If loading, I can return loading. If not, I can return, well, let's maybe just use my thing component and give it the thing. I import that. I also need to like set my thing right here. Get rid of that response. And I could set loading to be false right there. I'm going to leave a note here like skipping, try catch. I'd say this is actually, you might think this is probably for like, it's probably, this is like a bad idea. Even just for development purposes, it's going to be nice just to see that like alert, like, hey, something went wrong in your Axios call. It's kind of just nice. But we can, if you feel confident and you just are in a hurry, see if it works. I like throwing my kind of my hook stuff up at the top. All right. Use states not defined and render things not defined. So I need a const right there in front of that function. I need to import use state. Let's go things. Let's go to show. Oh, I need to actually call my function. Thing show. Oh, I need to actually call my function. I mean, I might not want, I mean, it's kind of weird to like throw this specific thing in here, but I might want to do something different, a different UI, but kind of just showing you this idea of this specific page for a thing. I mean, I could do whatever I wanted here. Reuse this thing component, maybe make another one. I could maybe even like in this thing show, I could actually put the form inside of here. You know, maybe I do something like this. I mean, this is where like the front end, you know, there's just, it's so dependent on like the UX in my thing form. Oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. If ID, nope, because we're getting the ID from params. No, I don't have this set up where I could reuse. I'd have to change stuff with my form to make it, to be able to use this right here.
What do the empty arrows mean like that?
This is what's called a fragment. I use a fragment if I want to have sibling elements. Because React doesn't let me have sibling elements. Like, you know, they everything needs to be nested within one element. And if I don't want to maybe do it in a div, I can do it in this thing that's called a fragment. So it's just a way to kind of get around that error. Because you might not want to have a div right here because that can like screw up your CSS. You might just want to be like, I just want those two to be side by side. I don't want to add an extra div. So you can do that. But yeah, what I was showing, I could like throw my thing form here. The problem with this, and I'm not going to fix it, how I have it set up. Wait, what? How does that work? Oh, I do have a params ID. Okay, cool. Okay, since I do, okay, that's why that's working. This URL does have an ID in it. So when I go to my thing form, it can grab the ID. I didn't realize it was going to get that ID from the URL. Cool. So that will get it. And then I could, you know, on this thing show, I could do a lot more stuff. I could have that be, I could have a thing show page where I show it, I edit it, I might have more information about it. So kind of like really, if we look at our dishes, like this dish, everything's on one page. We really don't have like a dish show page. We could add one, but I'm not going to. If I go to my things demo, this has like all 4 of these on different pages. So we have this would be like our all things, like our index of things. I could go to update, takes it to its own page. I could go to my show. That would take it to like this specific show page for one thing. And you can throw whatever you want on here. And then I could delete a thing. I just want to show one more thing. So let's say I'm like on my thing show and I want to go back, or I want like a back button. I mean, we've seen this, but it's going to be the use navigate function or hook. Navigate. And then I can say const, create some variable name. I'm just going to call it navigate because that would make the most sense. Use navigate. Or actually, I think I'll show you the 2 ways. Just do a div. So this would be like go back with use navigate. Click. Do a function navigate. This one I just want to go to like the things demo 1 route. We could also use a link from React Router. Link to demo 1. Go back with link. Navigate's nice because navigate you can throw in like a function. That's like a good use case for navigate. Link is nice if you just want like an A tag in your page. So if I go to my show, I can go, notice how this one is it's just a paragraph, but if I click on it, it takes me back because it's using the function. This one's an actual, it gives me like the A tag if I inspect. See how it does an A tag. I'm not actually just going to copy this. So I can go back with navigate, I can go back with link, I can go back with A tag. We looked at this earlier, but let's just kind of review this. They look the exact same, right? I honestly don't know what React Router is doing behind the scenes, but they are not the same. What's the difference? Other than the text. Here I go back. There I go back.
A tag is refreshing the page.
I was gonna say it's refreshing it.
Yeah. For this one that I say the A tag is refreshing. You can kind of see it like reloading. We don't want to do that. Cool. All right. So here, kind of just showing you a couple ways to do CRUD actions to do this stuff. Now we're going to do even another way with the provider. All right. So let's maybe also go to Trello. I don't know if those last ones I made, were these not, I don't know if I was able to make these visible. Can you even see these links? I throw this out in Slack. Let me,
It says we don't have access to your thing when we click on it.
all right. I mean, I kind of want you to create your own anyway, so maybe that is good. But I'll create this, and then maybe this one I'll just Slack out. But let's just let's do a little brief like context, provider review. Cool. Something else that can be good for these cards. One of the reason I really like Trello, it's kind of like a good place to kind of organize things. But there's a whole bunch of other tools we can use. So for instance, I think Code Sandbox is a great one. Because right now, like I kind of just want to do like this app is getting kind of complicated, has like React router. Maybe I just want to kind of think about context and how we use that. So I'm going to create a new sandbox, React. And really, this is just kind of going to focus on some of the basics of context and providers. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a new provider. So we're going to create like a user model. So I'm going to kind of assume I'm going to have a user provider. Create context. Okay, so I need to import from React. I'm going to call this user context. It's going to be react.create context, capital R. Okay. So React has on it this function, create context. So when we're talking about the context API, there's kind of three parts. We can provide, we create a context, and we can really provide data and consume data. Remember, and this is, we're doing this, to have shared, kind of this global state. All right. So then I can create a component. I'm going to call this user provider. I need props on side of here. So this is going to be my user context.provider. I'm going to do this as a React component. So this is I can do this user context.provider. Close it. I need to return this. Props.children. Remember, props.children, this is a React thing where I can like whatever JSX I nest inside of this user provider is just going to get plopped inside of there. Export default user provider. And we create the provider. will be used in index.js. Okay, so we export that, and then in my index.js, just gonna get rid of this strict mode. Let's do a user provider. User provider. Okay. And then with our provider, we can give this a value prop. Value equals yo. So here's my provider. My provider can provide a value. So in my app.js, I can consume the data. Or I can consume the provider, or consume the data. I don't know why they call it value. They should just call it data, but the prop is called value from my provider. So with this, I used the use context hook, and then I pass it that context I created was the user. Oh, I need to export it. I didn't export it. So my user provider, I need to export that because I need to use this user context when I want to consume the data. I pass it right here, user context. There you go. Questions? That, I mean, this is like as simple as we can make it. So there's 3 parts. You know, we want to have this global state. There's 3 parts. Create the context. You know, we have to create the context. You know, we have a provider. So we create a provider to provide data. And then we consume the data. That's like the context. This is the whole idea. So we create the context, create a provider, set that up in our app. And then whenever we want to consume the data, we just do it like this. We can grab it with our use context hook by passing it the user context. And there's that. It'd be less confusing if I call this value. I might want to call this user if this is like user context, because maybe that's what I'd be expecting that to be. What would I value? Oh man, value is such a, I want to say it's the value from the value prop, right? That is value from the value prop in our user provider. Very descriptive name of what that is. This is the value from value prop in our user provider. I go to my user provider, there's my value prop. It is the actual value. What if I change this to an object that actually looks like a user. Why doesn't like this? Oh, I need to React. So React doesn't let me render objects. This is why I always use that JSON.stringify. React doesn't like me using objects, or it doesn't let me. So if I stringify it, then it'll convert it to a string, and then I can render that. So there's the value from prop in our username. I'm going to just rename that because that's an obnoxious name to be user. And I also just, if that's an object, can I just destructure the name off of that? And I don't have to I don't have to stringify a name because that's already a string. User defined anymore. So if this returns an object, I can destructure it, or I could just not destructure it, call it whatever I want. I could call it value, like it's just a variable name. What's important is what it is. I could do user.name. So I'll just keep it like I'll kind of throw these examples up here and like those would work, but let's just kind of leave it like this. Cool. I could also in here, I could have a function. I could, in my provider, I could have some state. Const user set user could be equal to use state. Let's just pass that in here. And then here I could pass my user. Use state's not defined. Well, what if I want to send some other stuff down? Well, now I'm going to have that be an object. Because now I'll send this object user down, and then I have like this X value. I have a syntax error somewhere. Oh, I'm forgetting that bracket right there. Now I'm not, why am I not having the username? Well, I've changed this to now I'm sending an object that has user and this X param. So in my app.js, this would be user.user.name. So maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe I want to do, or maybe I don't want to call that user. It's just, I think this is where people get confused with this whole use provider. The value is just whatever I get right here, this use context, user context, it's just whatever is in here. How do I get the name now? Well, I have an object that has the key user, and in there it has this user key, which is actually the state, because this is really user. So if I wanted to grab that, that's user username, because I called this user. If I called this X, it'd be X user. I mean, I'm kind of doing some bad code. It's you know, it's just kind of like what we throw in there, how we throw it in there. It's kind of like up to you. So for this, because what you might want to do is you might want, like, in here, like, update user function that, you know, sets user changed. So you could kind of decide how you want to send this data down. I could maybe spread out over the user, and then I could throw this in here. So now I could do something like this, where I could destructure the name and update user from my context, and then I could grab the name. I could have a button. Click. Update user. Why is that not saving? Command S. This is the type of stuff I think where like you're as you're going through JavaScript, as you're going through this course, I think you need to spend the time. If you come across syntax that is confusing to you, like, really try to understand it. And it takes time. But this, I think this is where people, where I see students get in a lot of trouble or get really confused, is, you know, maybe we're talking about this new concept of, like, provider and context. When I had the value just as, like, yo, that's pretty straightforward, right? But then all of a sudden we start throwing in, like, some, like, ES6 stuff where we're, like, creating so here I'm creating a new object where I'm spreading out over the keys of this user object. And then I'm also throwing it a new function called update user. So if it's kind of like you don't understand this is like ES6 objects. If you kind of don't understand that, it's going to make just this whole thing pretty confusing. Right? I will Slack out this little demo. Or this code sandbox, and then we'll go in and throw it into our project. And see how you can do, like, a little code sandbox. See how this is nice. There's not like React Router. This is just like a basic demo with all the parts of how this kind of works. I know it's a little more, I'm actually going to get rid of these since I kind of changed that. This just in and of itself is enough to kind of just show you the basic parts, but this is essentially it. If you can understand this fully, you really understand context. So this is, you know, a total of like, I mean, that's 3 lines of code. This is probably like an additional 3 lines of code, and this is like 10 lines of code. It's like 25 lines of code. Cool. So let's kind of take this idea and let's now go, well, let's take a break since it's 11. Well, what time? No, let's do it. Let's go create our Rails model, because we're actually going to have a back end for this. And let's just do our Rails model really quick. But one thing I should do before I do my Rails model is I should do a commit. Go through my changes. That looks good. Just added that to my app.js. That's good. Go to my thing, added a link. That's all I want to add. That's perfect. And then my thing show. I mean, this is like a new file, so that's all new. So I can add that. Let's go commit thing show page. Be lazy and sync. There we go. Cool. Some of these too. All right, so let's see how fast we can do our Rails model. But you kind of tell me what I need to do. So first of all, let me tell you this. Kind of give you what I want. So I want it's going to be pretty straightforward. I want a user model that has username. It's going to be a string. Password. It's going to be a string. This is even without going through code. What kind of steps do we want to do? And this is just only Rails. I'm only asking about Rails right now.
We want to generate the model.
Generate the model. I could type out the command right now. Generate model, Rails G model, user. Copy all that right there. Cool. Generate model, what else?
You're gonna want to make your seeds.
Yeah, I could add some users to seeds file. That's a good idea. What do I need to, what would I need then after I generate my model, add seeds? What would I
make controllers?
Yeah, I could do my controller, add users, controller. Let's just kind of type that command out. That'd be Rails G controller API / users. There's kind of something here, like when I do my seeds file,
Create the database.
I don't need to, that's close. I don't need to create my database. I need to create the table. And that's running my migration. So I need to do a Rails DB migrate. And if I added something, maybe I'll even do this right here to kind of show the order. I would do a Rails DB migrate after I created my model. And then if I add something to my seeds file, then I would need to do a Rails DB seed. Cool. And then from here, I would say, create routes in routes.rb. And then fill out
Actions.
Yeah, fill out the CRUD actions in users controller. And, test. Right? Can you really think of anything else when we're talking about Rails? I kind of like throw that out in Slack if you want to make a Trello card with that. Rails, and it's pretty nice because that's like essentially what we want to do. I mean, this fill out CRUD controller, that's a little more, could kind of make that its own little separate thing, because there's quite a bit of work in that. But now that we have this plan, like, let's just bust it out. I do want to make sure I do have everything committed though. So yeah, let's go ahead and actually I'm fine with this being in here since this is related to what we're doing. So I do my Rails G model, username, password. So now I can do my migrate. Cool. Just since I'm here, I'm just going to create my controller really quick. Sweet. So yeah, now we could do our seeds file. So let's go to our seeds file. Copy this 10 times user.create. Our user is going to have a name and a password. So for this, I could go to Faker. I'm sure Faker has some, they definitely have usernames. So do a command F like username, website. Crypto, do they have like crypto stuff? I could like use one of these for like my password. Doesn't really matter. Let's see here. What can we do for a name?
Did I see Pokemon? You could do Pokemon names.
Pokemon. Let's maybe do like something a little random. Let's do like let names equal what I'm going to do. This is kind of a weird way to do it, but I could, once again, with our Faker file or in the seeds file, this is Ruby. I can Ruby's like a full-on programming language. So I could do, if I'm like want to get creative, yeah, I could come in here. I could do a whole bunch of different kind of names. You said there was Pokemon. Oh, let's look at this. And then I could come in here and do like dot sample. That's how you can pull a random thing off of an array in Rails. in Ruby. I keep on let names, not let names, just names. And sorry, this is not, wait, this is not name, this is username. So then rels db seed. Unknown attribute name for user. Oh, I didn't save this. I'm also going to do this right here, user dot destroy all, just to kind of keep up with this convention I'm doing. I didn't save this. I had this as name, and it's like, hey, your user doesn't have a name as a user name. I just forgot to save it. We'll run my seeds file. I could step into my console and just like user.all, or I could do like my user.first. Oh, password is filtered. What? It's like seeing that that's like, can I just get like, maybe an address will work. I mean, I could also just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or like, you know, I don't have to use faker. I could do like a random number. Seed it. Rails S or Rails C user.first. Oh, I wonder. Oh, okay. I think what's going on is since this is called password, I think it's kind of like hiding it. It's like not letting me see it. So let's do this. I want to maybe change this name. I don't want it to be password because I think Rails is like kind of protecting that. What I could do, and I'll kind of just show you this way. I think the best for now, I'm going to show you a better way, but for now I could do a Rails D model user. I could delete it. I could regenerate it. Now I'm calling this unsafe password. Now I could do a Rails DB drop. So if I'm kind of, if I remigrate, if I'm like changing, if I drop and like recreate it, I can just drop my database. Migrate. Let's just do this first. So I drop my database, I recreate it, I remigrate it. And then in my seeds file, I want to change this to unsafe password. Since I was calling that password, I think Rails by default was like, it's hiding it, hiding the value from me. It's like, oh, that's a. So now I could do a Rails DB seed. Rails C. User.first. O capital U. Why is that? Is it because it's password? Is it just like seeing that name? Let me show you another way you can change a name. username and unsafe. What's another word for password?
Passkey.
Passkey, and I'm also going to misspell it. So I could come in here to the migration. I could change the migration file. If I do this, I do need to drop my database. So I could just go in and manually change the migration file, but I would need to rerun. I would need to drop my database for this to work. Migrate. Okay. So now that I have that, I need to change this to passkey. Passkey. Okay, now I can do Rails DB seed. Step into my console. I'm glad I stepped into my console and kind of like check this user dot first, and there it is. All right. I maybe should have called it encrypted passkey, that password, that might have worked. Sweet. So now I have some users with some passkey. All right. So if I go back to my README, we've done these steps. Let's do we've created our controller. So let's do our routes. You know, for the hackathon, you're probably just going to want to be fast. Done. All right. Then we can go to our users controller. See, I mean, it's like, right, these are kind of the exact same before. I'm just, don't do this in the hackathon, because really, although you want to be fast, you also want to learn the stuff. That is like the point of the hackathon. But just to show you, like, I just took in my things controller. And this is why I called this a thing controller. It's like it can be anything. So let's do a search for thing. And just replace that with user. Replace. And then do a search for capital thing and replace that with capital user. I don't think it matched things lowercase. Should we see if it works? Just go to Postman really quick. Oh wait, what's one other, what's something we're going to need to change though? Kind of a little more manually. Our sanitizer, because it's not attribute 1 or attribute 2, it's the actual thing. We need to use the actual ones. So we have username and passkey. So let's do a get let's start up our servers. I did stop my server rails S-P 3001. So let's do a get users send. That works. User/1. That works. Let's make that a delete. That works. Let's do a put. So we don't want to do the thing. We want to do the name of the model. That's user. Then the name of the attribute. That would be username. It's again user, name of the attribute, passkey. I can't do this on 1 because I just deleted 1, so let's do it on 2. That worked. Let's do a post request, get rid of the 2. That works. So yeah, you can copy and paste this and switch it to users, but what good is that if you don't understand what's going on? There's actually like a command in Rails you can run, and it just like, you have to be doing the full Rails app, but you run one command in Rails. It's like Rails G resources user. It will create your controller. It will create your model. It will create all of your views. But we will get to a point where we start doing customs. Like, it's not always going to be this way. This is just kind of like the standard CRUD. But we will see, you know, other times we're going to want to do more specific things, more custom stuff. So, and then you're actually going to need to know what this is actually all doing. Cool. So that is done. Once again, I'll do a quick little commit. So I'm going to go through these. That looks good. That looks good. My user, good. Routes, that's good. Schema. All the auto-generated stuff I don't really care about. I can just add those. I mean, I definitely want to add them. I'm not going to like inspect them though. Sweet. Then I can do a get commit -m user model CRUD second can push origin main. Spelled origin wrong. And there we go. That's done. So I think this hackathon is probably going to be like 85% React, 15% Rails ish. That's I mean, made up numbers, but cool. Well, let's take a break. What time is it? Let's come back at 12:25.